Wallace is here to represent. Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah.
All right, happy Wednesday. All right. How many people do we have online? How's the line?
Right now, what?
One.
If you could, please reply to your name and who your child is asking for. Just say. Four.
All right. Numbers are skyrocketing.
They're going. They just quadrupled. Good morning, Jesus Diaz.
Hey, good morning, guys.
We need them to do
Welcome.
their part. We need them to do their part. That's how they can. Happy to school away.
Hey, Gavin, good morning.
Good morning, happy birthday.
Whoa.
But I owe you your, thank you, I owe you your.
That, did you actually stand in line for that thing?
On opening day on Friday.
When I watched the massive amount of people in line, I was like,
What is it?
It's a popcorn bucket.
she's gonna resell it.
No, I am not reselling it. It's gonna go with my collection of popcorn buckets.
What's so special about it? Is it vintage?
Yeah, can someone tell me like
I'm like,
what's the exclusivity?
It's just cool.
Now I feel dumb.
Lauren and I collect popcorn buckets.
What is it, like a commemorative?
It's just popping.
I mean, people collect them.
People collect them.
Cool.
Their line
They're
was
just
about
cool.
5 hours long, with no line.
Yeah, and at a certain point, they said, if you're from here back, yeah, you're gonna not get one.
Oh, really?
That's what I heard, yeah.
Well, that was on like Monday.
Oh,
I went Friday.
oh.
All right, good morning.
So
So,
I was like, I'm getting my.
mind if I throw it up here?
Oh, it is up there. Sorry.
Sorry. Hey, good morning. Come
My
on
bad.
in.
There it is. Good morning, Angie. Hi, good morning.
How you doing?
You're good, you're good.
All right, we are gonna get started. So, good morning. How's everybody doing? Welcome. Thank you for being here for our January School Advisory Council meeting. Good morning, guys. Come on in. All right, so we're gonna get started. Just so everybody remembers how we do this and the importance of the start of the school year. We acknowledge that we are having a school advisory committee, and these are the individuals who are on the committee formally, although everybody is welcome to attend this meeting, whether it be virtual or face-to-face. Obviously, in light of the most recent events, some people are choosing virtual, and that's cool too. However, the state still does say that our voting members, people who are on this list right here, people have been identified, that we ask that those people attend in person, because if we're gonna vote on anything or even have a formal meeting, we need to have quorum, which in this case, quorum means at least half these people, more than half of these people have to be here for a meeting in order to count as an actual school advisory council meeting. So I see a lot of familiar faces in here. A lot of these individuals are on here who are here. Thank you, I appreciate it. All right. So we're working on the formalness of our meetings. So in order to start a formal school advisory committee, we follow the Robert Rules of Order, and we're going to start by, I'm going to motion to start the meeting, and I need a second.
A second.
All right. So then we'll vote on. We all agree to start the meeting? Yeah.
Aye.
Aye. All right. We'll just do a quick raise of hands. We're all good? All right, great. All right. So we have called this meeting to order, and then our next step is for Ms. Zupa, the heavy title of secretary, to review the minutes from our previous meeting.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. For our last meeting, we briefly went over the SIP plan, the school improvement plan. We also talked about upcoming events and new businesses. We talked about SAC funding and where we get some of that money from their SAC budget. So due to teachers who don't use all of their teacher cards, In the past, that funding would roll over into our SAC budget. SAC budget is also used for things like tutoring. So last year, I know we came to SAC and asked for some money for tutoring to support our students, and SAC was able to give us some funding for that. So that's where some of our funding does come from. We talked about first semester highlights. We also went over and reviewed some data from iReady, which all the data was trending in the right direction. We're really proud of our teachers and our students for that. We're focusing on the growth and closing those gaps from everything that has happened to us in the past 2 years now, going on 2 years. Crazy. Talked about some upcoming events that were happening and some school-wide events that were also happening. So that was our gist of everything, and we talked about some upcoming events as far as testing is concerned, which we'll talk more about today.
Perfect. All right, thanks, Yuba. All right, so we do have a pretty lengthy agenda, but we'll be able to fly through some of these points. We're going to talk about. Can you go back one?
Oh.
So we'll talk really quick. I'll do a quick update. We'll talk briefly about COVID and the situation that we're in. Staffing report. I'm going to talk really quick about the vacancies that we have, the vacancies that we filled. All right, super excited about some of those points. We're going to talk about SAC grants, and Ms. Torres is going to go into detail about that. It's a really cool process, and I'm really excited that we're going to be able to roll this out. It's going to be a great incentive for our teachers, which will support students. Community involvement, talk about the things that we've got going on here, that we've had going on, things we have coming up. And PTA update, and we have our PTA president, PTA royalty here, and what things are coming up. We have testing, which seems like it's still a long ways away, but it's going to be here before we know it. Okay? All right. Torres, thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, so we'll address the elephant in the room. All right, COVID is still very much a real thing, and we deal with it every day here. You guys you're getting my calls. We'll talk about that in a second. So the district dashboard, I've had a link on here, but it was so long. I just put a screenshot of the actual. When you go to ocps.net, you can literally just click on this icon right here, and it'll give you an overview of the district status. You can filter by district-wide, elementary, middle, high, in specific areas, okay? So I'll tell you the data that we get, the information that we get from the Department of Health every day is we have 35 confirmed cases since we returned January 4th. That is adults and students combined, all right? And what does confirmed mean? That's a really good question. I've had a lot of conversations with parents and students and staff members here in the last couple of weeks about what does it mean to be confirmed. So most notably, there are two kinds of tests, right? There are the rapid tests, and those are most, like, I guess people refer to them as like the home test, right? You swab your nose, you put on a piece of paper, you put a few drops on there, and it tells you whether you're positive or negative, right? So we know that there's a wider margin of error with those tests as it pertains to or compared to the PCR tests, which are the ones that you get done like in a lab setting, whether it be CVS or your doctor's office or things like that. So in order for us to confirm the case, right, is that we, the school and the school district, require results from a PCR test, right? The lab test, right? Whether I know I get them from CVS, I get them from Advent Health, a lot of different networks. I'm not saying that don't do a rapid test if you feel like you or your family is symptomatic. It may be just a good way for you to say, yeah, there's definitely something going on here, or no, maybe it's just a cold, which I'll tell you in the recent cases is that like a common cold is still out there. Like people go feeling symptomatic of COVID because the list is 100 different criteria that can mean that you have COVID, but in the end, you just have like a regular cold, okay? So, with that being said, so like how it works is that if any lab you go to, any place you go and you get a formal PCR test, right? Best practice is that for the family to share that information with the classroom teacher, and then they share it with me, and then that information goes directly to OCPS portal, right? I put it in. I put it about the lab results, the day that the student was last on campus, When we start talking about adults, right, I have to enter vaccination dates if they're vaccinated or if they're not vaccinated. All right, those are private conversations. I want everybody to know that. Like, those are conversations I have with that individual, or if it's a child, I have that conversation with the parent individually, just so everybody knows. But anytime you get those tests done formally like that, they come to me. I would love it if it came directly from the classroom teacher, but more often than not, like, it comes from the DOH. So no matter where you get tested, it goes to the Florida Department of Health, and then somehow magically gets filtered down to Orange County Public Schools, and then I get the email with a spreadsheet of all the people who have tested positive. So then I do that. That sets the train in motion, which I do the portal, and then I make the calls, which most recently, because of the volume, I've done the robocalls, which aren't as personal. I get it, but everybody's getting a lot of calls from OCPS about updates and stuff. So I think there's a little fatigue, a little Connect Orange fatigue. So one last point I want to make is the third bullet point right here is that when to keep your kids home and when to send them to school. And it's a very slippery slope. So, for example, I had a student yesterday, right, not feeling well, and the student said, well, I took a rapid test and I tested positive yesterday. So this was 2 days ago, right? And I said, well, why are you at school? That's not the point, right? The point is that if a child is symptomatic, right, more than one symptom, feverish, right, and we know that more often than not, it's like a low-grade fever. Best practice is to keep them home and monitor. All right. If a child's positive, though, the child has to stay home. All right. And then we enter the protocol, right? And then once I get that information, they test positive, I send it to the Department of Health, and then they give me the return date. Like, I don't determine that. Okay. So I send it off to the Department of Health, and then they send it back to me and say, all right, Derek Nappins can return on January 30th. Okay. Ms. Gote, our registrar, has done a really good job. Then every time I get those, we share a spreadsheet. She makes a call and says, hey, parents of Derek, he can return on the 30th. Okay. With the homework piece, and I don't want to talk too much more because I know Ms. Torres has a lot to cover too. The homework piece is the district's been very clear that we're not going back to launch ed, right? We're not doing blended learning. That if as a classroom teacher you have 2 or 3 kids who are out, it's not the expectation that we have that blended or a hybrid learning model, right? Where the teacher is teaching live in the classroom and then also virtually at the same time. That is what we did last year in some cases. Some teachers taught that model. But the expectation right now is that we'll treat it as though the student's home sick. It will correspond with the family like before and after school through Canvas or through Class Dojo. And then, kind of the old school approach of like leaving work at the front desk. And if you're able to, come pick that stuff up just to keep them on pace as we go, right? Some of the isolation periods are longer than others. And it is what it is. And we're trying to make the best of a funky situation. So. All right, so the COVID calls are coming. I know they're impersonal, but what kind of questions do you guys have? Does anybody have any questions about COVID specifically, and how things are being approached or what the process is? Does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
So I have a student who has a family member who has tested positive,
Yeah.
but the students themselves are asymptomatic. They haven't taken the test, but they're asymptomatic and they're quarantined.
Yeah.
What's the protocol with that?
Yeah. That's a great question. It's a great question. So what Mr. Brew, all-star kindergarten teacher, is telling us is that if you have a family, right, who's acknowledged that like maybe mom or dad has tested positive, but the student has not tested positive, right? Maybe they've actually tested negative, right? They're not symptomatic, right? So what do we do, right? Well, as a parent, and Dr. Jenkins, our superintendent, has been very clear that attendance is not going to be prioritized, at least for the month of January, right? And it's really stressful and rewarding for our teachers when we hear this, because we want to make sure that we're taking every precaution to be safe here, right? So as a parent, you can take those preventative measures and you can just keep your child home. Maybe keep them home for a couple of days and you monitor, right? They're going to have that opportunity to interact and keep up with the schoolwork, right? But with the governor's orders, right, we're still eligible. The exposure, close contact, that parent could still send their kid to school, right? As long as they're asymptomatic, right? If they don't have symptoms, they don't have a fever, they don't have a cough. We're really looking for multiple symptoms, headache. I mean, there's, chills, body aches, there's a million of them, right? Sore throat seems to be a very popular one with Omicron, right? So best practice, all right, would be to keep home and monitor, although we can't force that kid if he has not tested positive, or they haven't tested positive, and they're not symptomatic. Okay, great question.
Ms. Shafi, Lena has asked about the difference between like the 5-day, like there are some people who are only quarantined for 5 days, but some people are in isolation for 10 days.
Yeah.
Is there a determination for the difference of
You know what I love?
that?
So that's a great question. Like, what determines or who determines the isolation period? So the adults, it's been 5 days. Consistently, it's been 5 days, right? With the stipulation that they're fever-free for 24 hours before they return. Okay, and I'm talking about our staff members. Luckily, I don't set the isolation dates from the Department of Health, and this is it's a cop-out answer, but I'm just being very honest. Is that, like I said earlier, I send the information to the Department of Health for the Department of Health in Orange County, right? They determine the return date. And then if I say, hey, that doesn't sound right, they don't listen to me. I'm just being very honest with you. They set the dates, and then it's up to the parent, all right? It's up to the parent to reach out to the Florida Department of Health in Orange County and say, hey, this doesn't make sense, and then they can have that conversation. They're not interested in what I have to say. They're interested in the information I send them initially, and then they just give me a date. So I don't have any power over that. So my only guidance would be call the Florida Department of Health in Orange County and explain the situation. It's a good question. I don't have a great answer. It's been very honest. Okay? All right. Moving on. All right. I'm going to do a quick staffing update. We touched on this before. We have 2 vacancies, 2 legit vacancies. We have a 3rd grade teaching vacancy that we've had now forever, and probably since October-ish, I would say. We just had someone apply, right? Literally last night. Going to interview him tomorrow. And we have a severely handicapped para. That individual generally works in our ESE IND units. Okay? All right. Great news and sad news. Most of you know Nurse Ellis, who's been our school nurse here for 17 or 18 years. She made a great choice because she made the choice to go spend time with her family and her grandkids, right? It was a huge blow to us, but we love her and she's a phenomenal lady. But we have great news that we have a new school nurse. Technically, she's temporary through an agency, but she's committed to us for the rest of the school year. She's phenomenal. She's fitting in very well. First-time school nurse, but she's an LPN, able to service the needs of all our students, so we're very thankful to have her. So that's where we're at, staffing-wise. Okay? All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Torres. She's going to talk about SAC grants. It's something they're super excited about as we move into the rest of the school year.
So as we spoke about in our last meeting, we have approximately $3,249.54 in the SAC budget. And what we want to do is offer this money to the staff members here at Endeavor to use for our students. We're going to make sure that it relates back to the school improvement plan, which on the next slide, we do have the 3 points listed out for you all to see. But we want to take a little bit off the teachers instead of putting their money in for classroom transformations or purchasing items for science experiments. We as SAC are going to be able to offer that and supplement of that so that students can still get the great things that they need, but it's not always coming out of the teacher's personal pocket. So our job for today is to determine the process that we want this to happen. We are going to release this information at the next team leader meeting so that staff members can begin applying. And it's our job today to put together the process. So asking all of you all as SAC, do we want teachers to submit their proposals a week in advance so that we can translate it for those who need to read it in their native language, just to make it a little easier? And then also put it on the SAC agenda so we can budget a certain allotment of time for them. Do we want to allow teachers to apply just one time? Do we want them to apply many times until the funds have been used? I do have some sample criteria of what the application process would look like from a teacher, because we do want to make this formal. We don't just want to take money and just make it rain money everywhere as much as we want to. We want to make sure that this is specifically driven towards the students. We also got to talk about how much do we want to offer it as a cap of $50, $500, $150, just knowing we want this to reach as many staff members and students as possible before we run out, because some, like Gavin here, $3,000 is a lot of money, but we know that can disappear quite quickly. So we want to be kind of aware of that situation. And then do we want to include a reflection at the end where once the staff member uses the funds, do we want to require them to come in and present it so we can see where the funds are going? So that's what I would like to talk about with everybody today. So we're all in favor of wanting to give the money to the staff members? I mean, that was something that we had discussed last week, so.
Yeah, we can do a formal vote, like to make sure the SAC grants are something that we're interested in, and then we're gonna formalize the process, so.
Yeah.
It sounded like Ms. Torres' motion to, vote for approval of, SAC grants.
I second that motion.
All right, so we'll vote. All right, so we're gonna vote, all in agree? All right, perfect, great.
Awesome. So we are going to put this process into moving forward. So let's talk about the amount of money that we want to cap it at per staff member. Notice I keep saying per staff member. I don't want it just to be for teachers, because it's not just teachers working with students. There are classified staff members working with students, front office, tutoring. So we don't just want to leave it at just teachers. We want it to be open for everybody here at Endeavor to apply for this. So I'm looking for suggestions of what they think the maximum amount could be with what I mentioned, what we have and the sheer number of staff members we have at Endeavor. Yes, Ms. Blake.
How many people apply?
You want to see how many people kind of apply first and go
Or
about
do you want
that
to set an amount?
before setting the amount? The thing, I'm in like the mindset of, I hope every staff member will take advantage of this opportunity, because I know, for example, Ms. Stiftar has already posted on Class Dojo, they need water bottles for a second grade science experiment. That is something where, she could have come in and just requested something as simple as $40 to go to Sam's, to get a case of water for all of second grade.
And
Yes.
I'm just gonna throw my 2 cents to get the conversation going out. Blair, thank you. I think it's important to set a dollar amount now, and it's something that could always be adjusted. But again, too, I think $500, considering we just have just over 3,000, would probably be on the high side. But like anywhere, maybe like $100, $200. But I'd really like to hear from the classroom teachers in our group here, saying that, like, what is, like, if you're gonna shoot for the moon for a classroom project, is $100 enough? Is $200 enough? Ricky, it sounds like you're ready.
Miss Ricky, you have done classroom transformations, and I know a lot of teachers are pushing towards that classroom transformation model just to make learning a little more fun. Approximately how much do you put forth with a classroom transformation?
So I aim for one a semester. And like for glow days, black lights, you need glow sticks, like the little glow in the dark hat, and then we made slime and we made glow in the dark other stuff, and like some game supplies, things like that, and then decorations. And then we did the space day, same kind of setup. It costs for me maybe $200 to do it for the whole year.
Okay.
So would it be feasible to say if it's $200 for the whole year and you're doing 2, would it be feasible to say $150?
That would be amazing. I would be so grateful for that.
Yeah, I think so.
So I'd like to put forward the motion that the maximum amount offered for staff members is, sorry.
Let's get clarified.
Better to cap it on a per project basis or per staff member basis?
Ooh.
It sounds good.
It sounds good.
If they need to, if the other staff members do not take it, and then this, staff member have the opportunity to reapply.
Mhm.
Once that he or she chose what he did on their last project, so they will be able to reapply if they need it for any project.
I know for a question that I put on here is just, have you just previously been awarded a SAC grant project as like sample questionnaire for them? So that is definitely a possibility where we can open it up to reapply for multiple projects and do,
You may want to have a max number of projects per staff member.
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
And not dollar amount per project.
I really like where he's going with it because, so like, I don't want to penalize a teacher who has all these great ideas and is going to continue to come to SAC and say, hey, listen, I have this other awesome idea that's going to cost under $50. So, but to maybe put a cap on it, say, hey, listen, you could win up to 4, 3, or 5 SAC grants per year. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Mhm.
Yeah. So are we thinking that $150 sounds like a good dollar amount? But
Per
are we saying
project.
that like, are we saying, what would be a reasonable cap? Are we saying 2, like, what, 2 per year, 3 per year per teacher? What do you guys think?
Yeah, 2 sounds good. It's like for me, it would be
Yeah.
1 per semester if I could apply
Okay,
in January now, and then would have applied in like November, October.
yeah,
That would help me.
because how are we thinking about that?
I think 2 per year.
Okay, so yeah, we can
Because
put,
at this point, any little bit helps. And
Yeah.
so just the fact that to be able to get, a little bit, it helps.
and then there are teachers who, or staff members, sorry. There are staff members who are not gonna go for that, it's like top of the line amount. They're gonna go for a little bit smaller, so smaller projects here and there, because like I said, some are doing it for science projects as opposed to classroom transformations. This,
Can I throw in one tidbit? I'm sorry. So just keep in mind too, and Tori's doing a great job, is that our first 2 goals are tied to academics, right? And our third goal, and this is a lot of language here, and you guys can find us on the school website, the school website. But the third goal is really tied to social emotional learning. And again, too, like we talk about, these SAC grants have to be tied back to the school improvement plan. So it can have an academic focus, and I would love for it too. But it also could be like an SEL, like a social emotional community building, class building activity, something that you're doing to bolster the morale in your class. Like we're getting ready for testing. Listen, 5th graders get slammed every year with testing, right? It's an intense year. So if a teacher can somehow, not even a teacher, a staff member can tie it back to, whatever type of rally or whatever it is, like some really cool stuff. Like, I mean, I have some ideas that I could even think, like t-shirt proposals and things like that are good for social and emotional things. So, Zupa, I'm sorry, go ahead.
How is this gonna work as far as, when they come to us with a proposal, and we say, hey, great, you get $150, and then why, that's $150 we spent? Or do they pay it up front and then we reimburse?
Good question. I don't know the answer to that. That's a good question.
that's a Janet question that we can go follow up on.
I understand does she hold on to the budget for SAC?
It's a part of our school budget.
Okay.
So it's a line, that's a great question. So where is this money at? So in our school budget, we have, I don't know how many line items, right? But school advisory council, Ms. Torres and I were planning this meeting last week, looked and we saw directly on that line item that we have like $3,200 some odd, right? So it's a part of the budget. So it would either be in the form of, I'll be careful to say too much before I don't want to retract anything, but whether we would pay for it like with a credit card, or if it would be a reimbursement or through a purchase order. So that's a good question that I don't have an answer to, but I can get clarification on that.
And just seeing from the families that are watching from home, they're saying, yes, let's get the monies to staff members. There are some that are suggesting, let's make sure that it is that project specific. There is the suggestion of $200 twice a year. So that is their suggestion for the cap and how often it should amount to. We've got somebody who had mentioned just divide that money between all the staff members at the school and just make it, that way. So I'm just making sure all of these suggestions
Oh, that's
are
really
coming
good.
across. But
I'll tell you this, though, like, I would really like to see, and again, this is a committee, so it's not just me making decisions. I would really like to see in a situation like this where teachers have the opportunity to create a plan that's gonna benefit their students or their grade level or whatever, it could be any staff member. I would like to see them present that plan and explain how this is gonna impact their kids, rather than just say, hey, here's 200 for you, here's 200 for you, here's 200 for you, because, man, I'm gonna tell you right now, we, at times, as teachers, like, not just our school, but in the industry, struggle with that, like, oh, I have $200, I'm gonna get on, what's the website, or something like that, and just like buy some stuff, right? So I think the idea of the application process, and Tora threw a piece there that her and I didn't talk about, which I think is super powerful, is the reflection process. So they should be, like, a stipulation of it should be like, hey, listen, here's the money you give, but you need to report back to us about like what you did with it and how did they go, like, we wanna know.
And just tentatively, like the tentative application process is similar to the OCPS Foundation grant process, because my goal, hopefully for our staff members here, is if we start with grant writing basics here, they can start grant writing for the district to get more funds for their classroom, which can turn into national grants, giving teachers that boost and confidence of, I can do this, I can do this. Let me seek out ways to get money for my students so that they are benefiting from it all. So going back, we had talked about max of two projects per year with a per staff member that wants to apply, and then the amount, the cap of the amount that we want to do. I know 150 was thrown out, 200 was thrown out. Do we have any other suggestions from the room and online? Yes.
I thought about what the person said, that dividing the full amount between all the staff members, that way you can have a little piece of money if everybody applies, because what happens is if everybody wants to apply, so that way you will have the money if that case. If no everybody apply, then that money will be available for extra projects. But that way, if you divide, and let's say 20 members that will work with it, then you have that cap for the 2 times. So if nobody apply, then you have the money available for a teacher that would like something extra or anything. But that way, everybody will have money. That's what I mean.
But the projects don't necessarily all have to be $150. It's
Correct.
up to $150. So I might need 75 and Ms. Kazar might only need 50. So that's why I think the amount, like setting a limit for how much you can, but not everyone will necessarily get to that much because their supplies might not warrant that.
But there's also staff members who are like, that's extra work, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
This is a great way to reward those staff members who are taking that initiative to go, all right, I did this, we collaborate as SAC and go, yes, yes, yes. And then, we're all Oprah over here, making dreams happen.
If a grade level is participating, can they like put a proposal together as a grade level and then present it, like one member comes and presents it on behalf of everyone?
I think that is great.
We have to so most our grade levels are wild. So like we have some grade levels that have 4 teachers, we have some grade levels that have 6. So we're saying that kindergarten who has 4 teachers could have a SAC grant of, $600.
Or 5th grade with $900.
$900. So
Well, but that we wouldn't necessarily
Need it all, but,
Right.
but that would open up that possibility of them to collaborate as a team, which would actually hit more students in the long run.
I think it's a cool idea, but I'd be interested to hear what you have to say.
If you did that, would it count for the SAC grant quota or project for each one of the participants in that group?
I think so.
Yeah. I would think so. I'm just trying to think of the way just to make sure that it's fair in such a way where the cap is that, because even if it's a whole grade level coming together, I'm not sure that somebody's going to be, maybe they are like reaching for the stars and going for $900,
Yeah.
but
I'm just thinking, like you talked about SEL, like what if we banded ours together to bring a speaker here or someone to do something like that, where we would
Reaching for
need more
stars.
than $150
Yeah.
to kind of cover that sort of thing.
I was
teaming
thinking
up and
like
partnering up.
any of the testing grades, 3rd, 4th, or 5th, like 3rd grade has 4 teachers, right? Ms. Kazar, Ms. Lazardi, Ms. Gassman, and Ms. Rivera, right? So like, let's say they wanted to make one of those like cheesy t-shirts, like Stop the Test or something like that, right? You see them all the time, kids love that stuff, but, you know, like what if they put their money together and said, hey, we're gonna buy, you know, we need 90 t-shirts, right? They have 87 kids in third grade, so, that's an SEL piece, right? Let's get them morale up for the testing piece, and
Mhm.
they can tie it back to that, so. I think it's a really good idea, what Ricky said, is that a grade level could propose, but it would also just be tied back, so it'd be tied back to those 6 individuals in 5th grade, that would count as one SAC grant for the year. Okay,
I like that.
so it sounds like we've settled on, two per year. I'm just doing a recap because we are gonna run out of time. A dollar amount, we've heard 150 or 200, does anybody feel more passionately or more input about one or the other? Yes, Torres.
Sorry, I'm just saying, like, especially now that we're talking about grade levels coming together, I think a $200 cap is gonna be, it's gonna deplete the budget that we have, and it's gonna be less opportunities to go around and be shared. So I think 200 is a little too high, considering teams are now, fireworks are going in their head that they want to start coming together.
And I want to say that we can't look at everything by basis too.
Yeah.
If you are gonna hire, or ask a speaker to come, which goes over the budget by like, $50, that isn't that we can bring to the table and have that discussion.
It's
So,
also a
there's
discussion we
limit,
could have with our
so-
PTA.
Right. Well, and also, I don't know, we can do that.
Or even just to cover part of the funds, just because we know lots of families are.
Yeah.
Right,
Kind of like cover part of the funds with someone coming and then,
Right.
make it just less of an impact on the family.
So I know we come to the school to SAC in the past and asked for funds for tutoring that our district has not covered. So that was something that it might be a little different for us as, part of the administration team, to come to the table and say, hey, this is what we're asking for, but for X, Y, and Z amount. Because it's gonna touch more students than just maybe a grade level or a class. So I think those also need to be kind of consideration. I think $150 mark, I think is also.
Okay.
Balance.
Do we all agree 150? We're gonna start with 150, and if we ever have to amend this, we can adjust it as needed. We figure it's too high or too low. So 2 per year, $150. The application process is gonna be, Ms. Torres created a Google form. It's super simple.
And you actually have a copy of the Google form. I handed it out with your SAC agenda, and I will be reading it out loud for the families who are watching from home.
1 week in advance, we send out.
I would like to suggest a week in advance that they submit this. That way, once again, if we need to translate for our Spanish speaking, Portuguese speaking members, we want them to be able to look at it in advance. This is something Ms. Gote could email out to all of you when she invites. She could attach this, so it gives me time to get it together, to get it to her, to push out to everybody. So we can kind of look at it in advance, plus have written copies when we arrive, plus the speakers will be here to speak on behalf of it and put it in their own words versus just what's on a paper.
Maybe share the proposals too, just on Dojo, like for anybody who wanted to could read the proposals ahead of time.
You could definitely do
And that way
that.
they can familiarize themselves with it.
So for the application process, I kind of pushed it similar to the way the OCPS grants work from the foundation. Simple first and last name, so we know who is presenting it. The grade taught, which is going to be a drop down from K through 5, including ESCs, specials, classified staff members, and the leadership team. And if I forgot anybody in that group, please let me know, and we'll be able to add that into a Google form very simply. What subject is being covered? Because some people will do it for science, some will do it for math, some will do it for reading. Just kind of let us know what subject's being covered or what club it is going toward, whether it's tutoring or something else, just so we're a little bit aware of what the money's going towards. What are the grant funds going to purchase? What exactly are they going towards? Just so we have it written down, plus the amount requested, not to exceed from what we've chatted about. It would just be 150 for right now until we vote and move forward. And then on the back is where the work comes in for the staff member applying. Explain how this request will help meet the needs and enhance student learning. Once again, they are justifying how it is going back to those SIP goals. What do you expect your students to learn and or know after completing this grant project? Once again, applying that reflection process, relating it back to the SIP goals. And then bringing back the presenting piece here at SAC, Presenting your final project with pictures or reflection will be required as part of your grant. Are you willing to do this? So if somebody's like, I want $150, but no, I don't want to show you what I actually spent my money on or how it affected my kids. We want them to come in. We want them to share it because we're a community. We want the community to be aware of what is going on in the classrooms, especially if it's something really awesome and engaging. And then, which I'm glad that we have suggested 2 per year. Have you previously been awarded funds for a SAC grant in the 2021-2022 school year? Yes or no? Yes.
You may need a feel for other participants in the project.
Other participants in the project besides your name. That's something we can add in the project.
Good point.
Please list. Please list. That way we are aware of the money being there. Plus we can also make sure that those teachers are tagged that you got it for this time, you got it for this time. All right, so that is a question we will add in. Anything else to the application process? Anything you want to add? Anything you think we should take away? Because that back page is we're not just giving out money, you are working for the money. That's not like the best phrase to say it, but it just shows the justification of why we are expending the funds.
And I'm just gonna say that too, Ms. Torres is speaking so knowledgeably about the grant writing process because she is our resident expert and has written several grants and has been awarded a ton of money in the last 2 years since I've been here. So she is our go-to person as it pertains to grants.
So like I said, we start here. Maybe you'll encourage staff members to apply for the OCPS grants, start applying for statewide grants, national grants.
Do you need that last question? If there's going to be multiple people tagged on the project, some of them it might be their first tag, some of them might be their second tag. But I mean, if that's the case, you're only getting a read on the person filling out the request, not everybody tagged. You might have another question after that initial fill in the participants, saying,
Has anybody on the team received?
yeah, or
Or they all file their own. But like with the same proposal idea.
then you need some kind of unique identifier for the project to be tied together with.
And it's
Like,
also,
all
we
tied
can,
back to the same project.
it's also, we can just create a running list of where the money is going, just kind of bookkeeping, keep track of it. And it's like a cross-reference, we just look and see, because they're having to come in here and present to all of us, requesting the money. We're gonna recognize their faces, so that might actually be something that we can just drop off completely.
Yeah, and if they're completing the Google form, you can export that to a
Mhm.
Google sheet and keep track of it that way. So.
Jumping on what he said, if you just have, like, let's say, for me, I'm filling out the form for 3rd grade. Because I don't think all of us doing the form is
Gonna happen.
that's more work for no reason. But if you have, okay, so I'm filling out the form, so I put, Sharon Kazar for 3rd grade, and then like.
Other participants.
Other participants.
Was already-
Just put full grade level and like that, and then some kind of identifier that says full grade level is X, Y, and Z person.
And we can just do first, it could be, the name could be whole last name or grade level presenting. That way.
And then the second question could be, has anyone on your team already received?
Yeah.
And then that's a way to kind of keep track of it too. Like if I've already received it and now this is my second one, but was already only had one, then, my name would already be on there that.
Yeah. I think it's also, we got the submission and we've got the Google form. It's actually something that keeps track of itself. So
Yeah,
that would be
yeah.
just an additional question just for a question. So,
Well, too, it's something that we can review, like as a Google form, or in the sheet, right? Like it looks like Excel. And we can even have like an additional column and say it was approved or I don't know what it would really look like actually.
Yeah.
But it would just be a piece of document, whether it's approved.
yeah, funds received or
Yeah,
not
funds
received.
received, yeah. Completed. All right, so let me ask you guys a quick question, right? We've talked a lot about this. I think that we've made a lot of headway. And we are around time. It's 8:30. Teachers got to get to class here in a couple minutes. So, do we feel good enough about the form and what we covered today to push it out to teachers like tomorrow and have them start submitting applications for SAC grants when we start hearing these at the next meeting in February? Or do you feel as though we need to continue to refine the form and really finalize the form in February and then not have our first SAC grant until March?
I say we do it and then as we need to. If we find that there's another question we can put on here or something.
Yeah. We are running out of time, right?
Yeah.
Because testing, is going to be here before we know it. So I think anything teachers can do in their classroom to supplement, whether it be SEL or academic, we should get going sooner rather than later. So I would say let's move forward as long as we're all comfortable with it. But again, too, I'm only one member of the committee and I want to make sure everybody feels either good or we need to come back to it.
Move forward.
I think move forward.
Okay, all right, great. Okay. All right. Yeah, super.
Good question. Does the budget, so you don't use all this budget this year, does it roll over?
That's a great question. Yes, it does. This money compiles. So I'll be honest with you. When I got here 2 years ago, there was about $18,000 in here. And again, too, this is money that was compiled from the school debit card, the teacher debit cards, and also recognition funds. So when the school is an A school, they get money and they can say, hey, I want 10% of the money to go back to the school, goes into this fund, right? All right, so any money we don't use this year, we'll have next year. Okay, good question. Yes.
I have just comment about this, to keep it simple, to start to move forward, just keep it individual. Let's do it individually and put a question. It will be a grade project, yes, okay, then you receive application for each teacher and then you can measure if it's the first time, the second time,
Yeah.
or whatever, and then you keep it simple in order to apply it as soon as possible.
Keep it simple in order to. My only thing, just from my side of it, is we also want teachers to be able to justify why they are doing it. It's not just, I want to do this project, because like I said, ultimately, we want them to apply for other grants outside of the school. And those processes are significantly longer. Like this is only half of the OCPS grant for the foundation. So this is simplified than what most grants are.
I just mean to keep it simple, to
Okay.
apply individually.
Got it, yes.
Don't apply it as a group, so apply individually. Is the 4 teacher of 3rd grade wants their cap for that project, then everybody got the 150, they get together, they hire the person, but they apply with all the measurements that I love it, but everybody got the money for that project. After they explain, I don't know, just to keep it
No,
simple
got
and
it.
measurable. But with all the process that I agree with, because otherwise people gonna have money and we're not gonna know how are they using it.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Do you have a
The question
Yes.
is, do we have the group submissions in one form or each individual in the group submit their own form and then they get part of the budget that's combined together?
I just know that like team leaders would be, because they're used to doing just a little bit more to support their team. It's going to come down a lot on the team leaders to just fill out the form on behalf of their team. So it's kind of like their like team leader duty of like requesting money for it. So I want to give them that chance to request as a team, because I know there are some teachers who are first year teachers who are like, I'm in over my head. I can't even think about adding this, but I also don't want my kids left out, when my team leader could fill it out on behalf of me. So it's still helping each other out.
I agree. I think that they should be able to apply as a team, but I think that they should come up here and present as a group,
Yes.
right? So all individuals who are interested should be vested and be able to present the content. So, all right, so for this,
I was gonna say, I see her point, is that, yeah, they're first year teachers, but if they're gonna continue on, then they're kind of gonna have to get into it.
And then they'll be the ones filling it out
Yeah, to
on
kind of
their own.
throw them in and let them swim. I mean,
well, let's just do a vote here then,
Mhm.
and that way we can make sure that we have consensus. Yes, Ricky?
Just one thing, like if you delay having like groups go, I'm thinking of field day coming up, FSA testing for third grade coming up. So if they wanted to do a group thing, if they wouldn't be allowed to apply by February, then they wouldn't have what they needed by those dates.
Correct.
The other thing too is if half of the group or a portion of the group got their submission on time and the other half didn't, then you'd be in a situation where the project is only partially funded.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, go ahead.
So I'm sorry, so then that was the question that I had as well, on these projects, is there from the moment that they apply for a grant, okay, start and finish, like an end date, like when it needs to be completed?
That should be a part, that should be a note on the
That
form.
should put like a light of fire under them, you don't have until
You
the
have-
last minute to get this started.
I would just, I like what you're saying. I think it does provide some closure on the form. I would say on the project, I think that on there, it should be like, what is your projected completion date? Like, or application, not application, but completion, like.
If they're doing this as a group, I would think that they would have talked about it, and each individual knows, we need to, you know, this is what we're doing, we need to get your funds, then we
Yeah.
need to apply, you know, post haste.
Agreed. So we'll note that on there, and then
Mhm.
it'll say, you know, when is this actually gonna take place, right? So,
It'll be when is the projected project's completion date, and
that way, because they can't come in and say, oh, we're gonna do this, you know, in August of, 2022, right?
yeah, it's gotta be before the end of the year for the budget closure.
Yeah. All right, so here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen. We've had a lot of input on this. I feel like we've had some amazing ideas and a lot of really good feedback and input. It's 8:38 right now. Do we feel good to move forward? We have just a couple community update pieces. I know PTA wants to talk about their sun event for a minute, and then we're gonna close this meeting because teachers gotta get to class in like 3 minutes. We're good? Are we good to move forward?
Should I put this to a vote, just to,
Sure, yeah,
Formalize
so the motion would be, that we finalize the SAC grant process, and we're good to push this out to teachers and have them start applying for SAC grants so we can review them at the February SAC meeting?
So, and part of that is the groups are able to apply on one form or multiple forms. So I think one form is what we were leaning towards.
I believe, I'm gonna offer my
I would lean
input,
towards
is
one
that I believe one form would be more conducive to the teachers, because listen, I love that we have so many different perspectives in here, but these teachers work their butts off every day. And for everybody, I think it would be almost a deterrent to say, hey, listen, all of kindergarten has to submit an individual application for a project that they're all doing together. I think it would be more conducive to the teachers, in my opinion. We have some teachers in here and they could voice their opinion, but for them to submit one application for one project that they're doing it as a group. So what do you guys think, approve? Ricky?
For me, I could see either way. I know it's easier for each teacher to submit easier for SAC, right? For us to keep track of who is applying to use the funds, how many times they've applied individually. It's easier for SAC, but in the other turn, it's easier for teachers if we just have one person who's responsible.
I don't think tracking is gonna be an issue, right? We're able to manipulate Google Forms and Google Sheets to show what we want it to show. So if we say that it was approved Rincon, Johnson, and Ogando from kindergarten to apply for this grant, then it can be noted there. I think that's easily identifiable. That's not something that concerns me.
I also agree, it would be easily identifiable if they just put it all together in one, because I'm not gonna lie, that's also gonna make my life easier when we have to sort it and print it out. It's gonna be easier to have a grade level proposal together versus 5 separate proposals that we're trying to put them all together.
But this is if they're all doing the same project, correct?
That's if they are doing the exact same project, exactly right.
So back to the motion.
I would like to make a motion that we move forward with SAC grants so we can begin receiving teacher applications, noting that they are limited to 2 grants per year. along with a cap of $150 per person applying.
And then they're gonna be submitted.
And they must be submitted 1 week in advance per project and present in person at the SAC meeting.
I love it. I second.
Yes. Motion approved.
All right, so
Thank you all.
Torres, are you okay, if we just, if PTA can talk, if we can kind of bypass the community involvement, the community, event?
I am great with that.
So then I just want, PTA to talk really quick about the Sun event, so anybody who's following online can also, and then we'll close this meeting up.
Yeah, so February 5th is our big Sun event coming up in Ready. We're going to have, it's a buffet breakfast, parent, son, and then additional kids if you need to, either, son or daughter, buffet breakfast, and then you get a card for 2 hours to play the video games, and then you can stay and play the rest of the day. We're gonna have little goodies here and there, and we have a photographer coming, that you can take a picture home, it's a nice little commemorative thing, and then following that, we'll have a daughter event later on in the year, but that's gonna be our big Sun event coming up that we do every year, so it'll be a lot of fun, and yeah, please join us.
Cool. There are, super excited. PTA has, after last year, had an amazing revival this year. And they've done a great job. We had some amazing stuff going on the first half of the school year, all the way into the holidays. And excited to keep the momentum going with the awesome mist. All right. So last thing is
What we can do is I can take this Google slide and we can ask Ms. Gote to email it out to all of our SAC members. I believe I can post a PowerPoint presentation on Class Dojo for all of our members who are watching, so they can kind of see what the community events that we've worked on. They can see what's coming up next, along with everybody will be able to see the testing dates that are going on. Just for the sake of time, I can get that downloaded and up to Class Dojo as long as they'll let me post a file. It should. We can get that up for everybody to look at on their own because we are short on time.
Yeah, and we can do the testing dates on the school website. Listen, before we wrap up, our next meeting is February 16th. All right, right here in the media center. We're going to try to do 2 in March because we did not do one in October. November. So listen, phenomenal meeting. We got a lot covered. This is some great discussion. I appreciate everyone's input. And with that, I'm going to motion that we adjourn the meeting. Second. All right, all vote. All right, thank you. Listen, I'll be here to answer questions if you have about anything that we covered today. I'll hang out here. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you all so much for joining us.
Thank you.